From the Allen Media Worldwide Headquarters Studios, high atop 2 Turtle Creek, this is Deconstructing Dallas. Greetings, everyone. It's your host, Ryan Trimble, joined live and in person by the fully vaccinated Shawn Williams. Shawn, good day, sir.
Hey, Ryan Trimble. It is amazing to be sitting here with you after like 15 months of recording this podcast virtually.
That's right. We have been in the MZ Studios, Dallas virtual studios. Big thanks to Michael Zavala, who continues to help us. A portion of this show will have been recorded virtually, but here we are, back high atop 2 Turtle Creek, sir, and it is good to see you in the flesh.
Was it last week when we saw you for the first time, or was it
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
When you graced us with your presence,
yes,
and we were all excited and hugging and crying and all sorts of things, just excited.
Yeah, now it's like, get back to work, you bum.
Yeah, and you came back on brand with a suit on first day. First day back.
I mean, I don't know how to do this. Are people still wearing suits in the real world?
Man, that was so funny because I'm pretty sure I had on almost shorts. No, I had on short sleeves. Definitely not a jacket.
I think you had some Aggie attire.
Yeah, I did.
I think you had your Kyries on. Your feet. So,
well, it's good to have you back. It's good to be back. I'm excited about. First off, I'm excited about the work we did during the pandemic, to be honest. I mean, it's tough circumstances for everybody, our listeners, our friends, our families. Everybody's had just a tough time, but I am proud of the work that we were able to do on our podcast.
Yeah, it's been great to be able to continue producing these episodes, and grateful for the platform and for the opportunity and for all of our guests. And I think coming up, we are working on a way to thank everybody in person. Invites to our guests will be going out at some point, TBD. So,
but we would like to be able to get together with folks in a very safe and practical manner, and hope to do so here in the next few months. So please listen, be on the lookout. We will share the information as soon as it becomes available.
That's right, Shawn. Now, we have a very, very exciting show today. We're going to be joined by the former Speaker of the Texas House, of course, Joe Straus.
You know, we're going to be listening to something we've already recorded, so I don't have to talk about what's going to happen. I can talk about what I know has already happened. And it is a great conversation for me, who did really have a lot of respect for the work that he did in Austin. Knowing now some of the things he's been doing and been working on in the time since he's left the legislature, I'm even more excited about some of the things he's doing and some of the things that we're able to share. So I really am looking forward to sharing this with folks.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take a photo to prove that I do have the photo on my stand in the office there, Shawn. So I will tweet that out when we post this episode.
A great photo with the former speaker and the Trimble family.
That's right.
As it were.
As it once was, and has since grown. So as always, thank you to Mrs. Trimble for that. So without further ado, Shawn, let's jump into a quick break. We'll be right back. This is Deconstructing Dallas. Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. Stick with us. Deconstructing Dallas, Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. Shawn, as I may have mentioned to you about 1,000 times, I was a former legislative staffer, and as any good former legislative staffer will do, my office is decorated with photos of me posed awkwardly with former elected officials. But one of my favorite photos that's in my office was taken during the waning days of the 2017 legislative session. And it's when Lauren, my wife Lauren, and I had the chance to introduce our then 10-month-old daughter Tabitha to the Speaker of the House, Joe Straus. And the Speaker was very busy that day, but it was gracious to take a few moments, as he always is, to say hello to our 10-month-old. And it is my great pleasure to introduce the former Speaker of the Texas House, he, of course, Joe Straus. Mr. Speaker, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to join you guys today. And I remember that day as well when you all came up and came in to make the proper introduction. That was one of the few highlights at the end of that session for me.
Well, you were certainly gracious, and I think Tabitha was ready to grab the gavel from you. But
well, tell her to hurry up. It's still there.
Yeah. But I was fortunate enough to get to know you and be close to the action during your time as Speaker. But you and your family have a long history of public service. So can you share with our listeners you and your family's legacy and what drew you to run for the House and ultimately run for Speaker of the House?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in San Antonio. Family's been here since the late 1870s. But politics was never really a very important part of my family's lives until my mother got involved in Republican politics about the time that I was born, and that would have been during the JFK Richard Nixon election of 1960. And so politics for me, by definition, started out at a very young age.
Sure.
In those days, my mother and a lot of other volunteers were very actively involved in the beginning of the building of the Texas Republican Party, and really trying to build a two-party system when at that time there was really one dominant party. There were, conservative Democrats and there were liberal Democrats, and those who were, kind of considered themselves the conservative establishment only really had one party to choose from. And so that went on for a long, long time. But these Republicans who appeared really before 1960, but began to make a little more noise about that time with the election of John Tower as the first Republican statewide elected official since Reconstruction, really made their mark. But that opened doors for me as I was growing up to be around some really consequential leaders of the time and in the future. I was fortunate to get to know the Bush family as my family assisted them in their statewide elections, and I did my first internship for Senator Tower when I was 17 years old, and he was still at that time the only statewide elected Republican, and would remain so for another year or so until the Clements election and his reelection. So I was able to then, after college, have some very junior level roles in the Ronald Reagan administration and in George H.W. Bush's administration. Then in my 30s and in my early 40s, I was really more focused on raising family and being involved in business, and still working as a volunteer in political campaigns, helping out others, raising money. I was also a Republican precinct chairman here in Bexar County,
the grassroots,
for a number of years on the management committee of the Bexar County Republican Party. And then when very suddenly and unexpectedly, this Texas House seat where I live came open around, I guess it was pretty close to Christmas time in 2004, when my predecessor, Elizabeth Ames Jones, was being appointed to the Texas Railroad Commission. So Governor Perry at the time called a special election for this seat. There weren't a lot of other people, wanting to get in on such short notice. I actually tried to coax a friend of mine who was running for mayor of San Antonio to drop out of that race and run for this seat. But he refused, and so I did get in and was elected and served a couple of terms as a state representative until the 2008 election and 2009 session, where there was, I guess, quite a bit of unease with the leadership in the House at the time. And one thing led to another. And I think there became something of a bipartisan view that there was going to be a change in leadership. And there toward the last minute, I threw my hat in the ring along with some others, and I ended up winning the votes to become the Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, this is a lot of great history that you have shared with us, but I also know that you're looking forward, and namely through Texas Forever Forward, and you serve as the chairman of the organization. And we wanted to know a little bit more about the vision and a little bit more about this organization.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. When I chose not to run for re-election in 2018, after serving 10 years as Speaker of the House, I knew that I wanted to continue to have a platform to advance the priorities and the issues that I cared about, such as public education and mental health, for instance, that we addressed, or at least we tried to address in significant ways when I did serve as Speaker. So I created Texas Forever Forward in 2019 when I left office, so that I could continue to spotlight these priorities and other things through messaging and also supporting candidates who share those priorities and others. We were very active in the 2020 election cycle. I made that commitment when I left office that I would stay, still, I guess, captain of the team in 2018, and then I stayed active in the 2020 election cycle too, helping to ensure that the Texas House stayed in Republican hands, and also tried to help some good Republican candidates who needed some help in their primaries. But looking to the future, regardless of how involved we are in the elections and the upcoming cycle, I'm going to continue to use Texas Forever Forward to highlight the issues that I believe need attention and focus, and often get lost in the haze of some of the more divisive social issues that continue to crop up too often. But we have, I think, a credible platform to be able to weigh in when it's appropriate, talk about issues like adequate funding for education and for creating and maintaining a pro-growth business climate in the state. And that's more than just, not having a state income tax. There's a lot more to it than that. And I think that too often those who are currently in office and caught in the day-to-day maelstrom of politics may be taking their eye off that ball. So we're trying to keep them focused on those things that have made Texas the success that we are.
Yeah, and I know that you've been spending a lot of time on Zoom calls, especially the pandemic has allowed you to stay home and not travel as much. But
haven't we all? Yes.
But what are you hearing from leaders across the state? Chamber leaders, civic leaders. What issues are they focused on in regards to moving Texas forward?
Yeah, well, I do try to stay in touch with civic and business leaders across the state to hear really what they're thinking, and they do like to know what's happening in the state from somebody who's been there, but also has a distance now from the process. So it allows me to get a better understanding of what people care about, and allows me to talk to groups of Texans without giving them a lot of the typical rhetoric or political promises that they're used to hearing from people who are in office. One thing that I've noticed really ever since the winter storms is people are asking, what's going on? That question comes from Texans, from inside Texas and from outside Texas. This legislative session ended with a lot of squabbling and a lot of finger pointing, a lot of the blame game. And it doesn't really register with people out there across the state who aren't in the political game day to day. And I've been there before. Believe me, I know how it is at the end of the session when people don't get everything they wanted. But that kind of finger pointing and blame game is not something that most people relate to. I think Texans are more concerned